The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Let's get into it. Mondays here. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody in. And you're welcome to join us, as always, on a Monday, 489-1240 to get in. 800-825-5865. Did you enjoy your bye? Hear the old Schick and Nick hackling and cackling going on. We'll check in with Schick tomorrow, but let's focus on today, as it is Indiana week. I have not been to Bloomington, ever. Thought about it, but haven't pulled the trigger on it. Nebraska's not been there very often in their tenure, but all eyes coming up for Big Noon. Nebraska and 16th ranked, unbeaten, everything Indiana. How's it going to go? We'll get into it, but awesome weekend of college football. So-so golf for me yesterday. Better golf on Saturday, as Junior said, I'm driving the cart, Dad, just to prevent you from self-harm. And then he drove and stopped by, and he's like, oh, look, a retaining wall, as I grounded him for 3 weeks. But no, had a good bit of a breather, good weekend, great college football Saturday. Hope you enjoyed. And plenty of fun on the NFL slate yesterday as well. Can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Can always watch the show, like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter. Can watch the program that way. We'll get our starting five shout-outs as well. That is coming up to those of you in the stream. And Elijah, it looks like you found your way to the golf course a couple of times this weekend.
Found myself at the golf course, at the bar, a little bit everywhere.
You
I was
put
here,
in some
I was
OT
there.
at the bar.
It's going to sound bad whenever I really lay it out.
You're young, and you walked there, and you walked home, so it was okay.
Yeah, no, we watched the 11 a.m. slate, the Washington, Iowa. I mean, 11 a.m. was the one part of the college football Saturday slate that was really just not great. So once we suffered through that, we walked on down to the local establishment a couple blocks from the house. So this would have been 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I think we stayed until just after the Ohio State and Oregon game went final. So we're talking 11 o'clock. So that was a long afternoon. Many a pitcher was ordered. Many a pitcher was consumed.
You drank some water, too.
I did, actually. I was proud of myself for once. I drank some water. But we watched a lot of college football, too.
How many
So
rounds of wings did you go through?
Only one round. 12 total wings.
Okay.
I made it through 12 wings, plus an order
But
of...
a 7.5-hour day at the sports bar is
Tots.
pacing yourself. I love that.
Yeah, that's what it was. And the thing was with those 5 pitcher cards, the tab at the end of the night was reasonable. It was the best. And then woke up on Sunday. You and I did our other show together, Schmitty. And then, whenever the Broncos were getting murdered on national television by the Los Angeles Chargers, I went to the golf course and got in a quick 9. So good weekend all around. I'm refreshed, but I am glad we have college football and Husker football coming on Saturday. So
we are on the road this Friday at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino, Ameris Sports Book and Bar. We're posted up there 4 to 6, so come find us across the river at Ameristar, Ameris Sports Bar and Sports Book. We'll be there 4 to 6 for your Friday road show. Get your bets placed for all that college football and NFL. Gregory checks in, break out the SIGs. Can you put that back up for me? For Indiana, Nebraska, smoke them if you got them. Yeah, we'll see if Nebraska is lighting a victory cigar Saturday or not. The line is up to 7. Indiana's favored. But we'll hear from Coach Rhule as he had his Monday presser. We'll see, I think Signetti's tomorrow. So we'll grab some of that. Eat Beef is in. He got in a little bit after 3 Central Time. Justin is here. Anonymous checks in, says in the last 10 years, 80 different schools have finished ranked in the AP Top 25. Nebraska has not. Well, there's plenty of season left, Anonymous. We'll see where Nebraska goes. Mr. Snitley is in. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Afternoon, fellas. It is game week. Uncle Larry is here. Grateful Red is in. Uncle Jimmy here. Hand surgery tomorrow. Uncle Jimmy, fast recovery. Hope that hand surgery goes well. NASCAR Eric is here. Mr. Erickson in from South Dakota. Justin Old Boot checks in. Where is he checking in from? Oh, it says all. I thought it was a state he was referencing. It is not. Again, I need some readers. Justin says, good afternoon. Arlo is here. Jeff is in. Black Hills. Brennan is in. Brent is here. Tuck checks in. Now let's discuss the pitiful golf game this weekend so that we can get into more important things.
Done.
Yeah, we moved on quickly, Tuck.
Check that one off the list. He did predict the start of the Monday show pretty accurately, though.
And he did that 15 minutes ahead of time. Yeah. He may be eavesdropping, or we're just bugged, and Tuck is with the FBI.
Or he's Nostradamus.
Something like that. Big Jerry Boy is here. Tim is in. Great Red Shark, along with Tim, is in... HJ50456. What's going on? Good to have you. We heard from Gregory, and we will take more of your comments and thoughts. Did you play golf this weekend, Justice? Or did you just go scare small children and large animals out in the wilderness?
No, did not get any golfing in. Spent the day playing ping pong at my buddy's apartment, getting that done during a long day
Beer
of football.
pong or ping pong?
Ping pong. We grabbed the paddles, not the solo cups. That wasn't a Toby Keith type of day, if you know what I'm saying.
Our friend Justice is also not 21 yet.
Good. Duly noted.
Hey,
going to write that in large
Thursday.
letters.
On Thursday.
21
On Thursday, that
college
changes.
Students.
Thursday
Birthday's
changes.
coming up. All right.
Thursday that changes, but yeah, and then Sunday, got all exclusive access inside the red-white scrimmage in Devaney. Got to see an early preview of Nebraska ball.
What you think?
Team looks good.
Team
looks good. The big boys in the middle better figure out how to score a 2-footer, but other than that, boys look pretty solid.
Well, I can't wait for that.
I didn't think I told the story on the air. It was the two guys that I think had the best day were Bryce Williams and Connor Esegian.
Okay.
I saw those guys out golfing this summer one time, and they were also impressive on the golf course, much better than me, and it made me feel bad about myself. But that was just a quick aside. I don't have much else to add.
They're wonderful natural athletes.
They were on the fairway next to me, and I look over, and they're just hitting pure shots as I am hitting ground balls down the middle of the fairway. At least it was on the fairway.
It happens. Yeah. It happens. No more golf talk. People are screaming about our golf talk. But what should we order Justice up on Thursday? What should we bring to the studio for him? Because we can do a
Pedialyte.
Give him an IV. Give him an IV.
Water and ibuprofen.
Something like that.
Club soda.
Ken checks in, says Cignetti is a less likable version to Bob Knight. And Ken asked the question, how many fumbles? I don't know, Ken. Are you asking how many fumbles for Indiana or how many fumbles for Nebraska on Saturday? I don't know. We'll see. But this should be all right. What this game is for me, and Tim Verghese going to check in with us from inside Nebraska Rivals coming up in about 10 minutes. Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride, will be with us at 5. And then Jay Moore going to join us from Big Red Wrap-Up. Blackshirt Husker NFL. We'll hear from Matt Rhule here in a moment. But, you've heard Cowherd in past years designate a team as a fake ID team. And Iowa gets that from time to time, but he has revoked the fake ID, keeping with Justice and the soon-to-be 21st birthday on Thursday. Justice does not know a guy down in the corner spot at the dorm to fix that remedy of not being 21 yet. Justice is a stand-up individual. That being said, to me, this is a foam and beer discussion. Is it all foam, no beer, or is it a full glass of suds? And I'm interested in Indiana. I'm not faulting them for what they've done at all. I'm not faulting Indiana at all for 315 yards throwing, 200 on the ground, allowing less than 260 yards defensively, right at 19 sacks. They have done what they've wanted to do, and they've hammered people. They have hammered people on the road. They've hammered people at home, and they have won by double digits against everybody. And I think it's fair to say, do we agree that it's week to week and a new and different team can show up at home field or on the road in the Big Ten? Ohio State may get scared again this year by somebody that doesn't have a little number next to their name because they aren't focused. Bama got the hell scared out of them by South Carolina, who's probably a sneaky, decent team, as is Kentucky, but they're still staring at 3-3. So it is absolutely what team's focused, what team shows up, and can you be the same group of 100 dudes every Saturday? That is what every coach is striving for. That is the mystery of college football, that you pray you've got a locked-in team on Saturday. And I think Matt Rhule really emphasizes that. He really tries to drill down on it. That's how you can look at this Nebraska team, that they are trying to, it sounds super boring. We'll just go 1-0 each week. Yay, wonderful. But that's absolutely how you have to approach this stuff, because if not, you're Alabama and getting scared. A week after you got shocked. 2 weeks after you looked like a great college football team for a quarter or a half and a quarter till Georgia roared back. So it's fascinating. And with Nebraska, what I'm interested in seeing, and I think a lot of Nebraska fans are interested in seeing, and what are you thinking about for Saturday? To me, can Nebraska be at this point off of a bye week with a 5-star quarterback, with a damn good defense, and with an experienced offensive line to go into somebody's place, not blink, not be sloppy, just go own it? Can they go play well on the road against a ranked team that they're underdogged against and just go kick someone's butt? Or at very minimum, get out of Dodge with a win where you play 4 quarters of good football and you're the team making plays in tight moments. You're the team making plays on 3rd and short. You're the team making plays when you got to hit a throw. And I want to see this growth from Illinois to now. You've had a chance to regroup, rekindle. You've won 100 different ways. You've blown out people. You've hung on for dear life. You've slept walk for a half at Purdue. And then you had your heart broken against Illinois. So you've seen all sorts of wins in that one loss. What all travels to Bloomington with this football team is what I'm fascinated to see. And as much as Nebraska fans want relevancy, and that's what Matt Rhule's goal is to be a relevant football team, you're being placed because of your brand and what Indiana's done this year in prime real estate. You're in prime real estate this Saturday, big noon at 11. You're in prime real estate next Saturday, a week from Saturday, with Ohio State. So right now, you have the eyes of college football on you. How do you go perform? It's time for Nebraska to go perform. I think they know that.
I mean, absolutely. And the question that I have in my own head is kind of how does each team handle the moment, as you've discussed here. Indiana's the one that I think has pressure. Being the undefeated team, they're having the season that nobody thought they would. I mean, there's probably kids on Indiana's campus that didn't care about football until this season because of what Indiana's doing. They're going to be playing in front of a sold-out crowd with big noon kickoff there. How are they able to handle that moment? How is Nebraska able to respond with what I'm sure is going to be a lot of people talking about the Indiana Hoosiers this week? It's not going to be about Nebraska. It's going to be about Indiana. How do you handle that as the underdog going in to a team in Indiana that is going to be the darling? Indiana is going to be the darling. And I think in a lot of cases this year for Nebraska, being that they are a lot better than years past, Nebraska is the darling headed into football games. People are talking about them. That's not going to be the case this week. How does Nebraska handle it? And then you can talk about the product on the field, which, as we've seen this year so far in the Big Ten, I think you can take observations from wins, but you cannot look at it and go transitive property like you maybe could have in other years, and it's always dangerous to play that game.
It is an absolute bingo card every Saturday.
I mean, does it matter that Indiana's offense has put up 40-plus points in all but one game this year? Like, no. It doesn't against Nebraska. Nebraska's the best defense they've played so far this year, and you could make the argument that they are the best defense that they will play all season long because there's some question marks with Ohio State's defense following that performance on Saturday. And Michigan, who is another good defense, I think their better defense is their offense playing ball control. So I think you could make the argument that Nebraska is the best defense Indiana plays this year. But does Nebraska's defensive performance against Colorado matter against Indiana? No, it's a whole new ballgame.
Matters from a confidence standpoint that you can go out and inflict your will.
And it's the same with Indiana's offense. Like, you've gone and put up 40-plus points on a lot of football teams, including some Big Ten foes, but they're not Nebraska. Like, no one was expecting Purdue's offense to go put up 49 on Illinois this weekend and give them all they could handle, or Iowa's offense to go put up 40 points against Washington. People weren't expecting that. That's just college football right now.
Did you guys freak out at all? Just a small percentage of you. Did you freak out seeing Purdue put up 49 and go for the win in overtime?
I was kind of rooting for Purdue.
Did you freak out about what you saw with Ohio State botching the finish of that game? Team's too well built to screw around. They were up double digits a couple of times and couldn't hold it in. Eric checks in and says, I'll save everyone the drama. Desmond Howard's picking Indiana to win. Fine with me. Brian nails it. Absolutely nails it. Nebraska needs to make Indiana feel them. Nebraska's the more physical team. Play like it. They win the game. Tim Verghese checks in inside Nebraska rivals. We'll hear from Matt Rhule at Hail Varsity on a Monday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity, and can find us on YouTube, Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe. Watch, listen that way. Also along the Hail Varsity Radio Network, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Tim Verghese in with us inside Nebraska, rivals.com at Tim Verghese on Twitter. We'll get some recruiting thoughts from Tim. But Tim, what'd you do for the bye week, man? Good to have you in.
Yeah, caught up on football. It was good Saturday, just watching a whole slate. Really enjoyed kind of just having an opportunity to have 4 or 5 different games on at the same time and just sit on my couch and watch that. So that was a blast. And yeah, that was pretty much the bye week for me. Just kind of relaxed and took some time to just recharge because we've got a big stretch ahead.
I don't like saying what could have been, Tim, but one of my thoughts to combine the day of watching football on Saturday along with Nebraska recruiting is, man, Ryan Wingo at Texas. It wasn't the most statistically eye-popping day for him. Man, is that not a guy that would just flourish in Nebraska's offense?
Oh yeah. And he's a guy that watching that game, it's a lot of elite athletes on that field. There's times when he's got the ball in his hands and he looks like the best player on the field as a freshman. Like he's a monster. And I have a hard time seeing him leaving Texas just because of that role is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger for him. But yeah, if obviously Nebraska really wanted him coming out of high school, and they're trying really hard after a couple other guys at St. Louis.
Well, Nebraska is invading St. Louis well, as other parts of that 500-mile radius are a little bit beyond. Nebraska's certainly targeting. Big stage, Tim. We've seen it for Colorado, Nebraska. We saw it for Friday night, Nebraska, Illinois. This is the old third time. Could it be the charm for Nebraska v. Indiana? Indiana comes in, a little Cinderella to them. That's not a knock, not their fault, but there's some questions about how for real is Indiana. And there's also questions about, all right, how much better is Nebraska than their game against Illinois, and how much better can the offense be from just the last Saturday they played against Rutgers? What do you think's important Saturday for Nebraska as they go on the road trying to snap that ungodly streak against ranked foes?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I think that are important here, and it's things that are fixable and things that Nebraska can control. One would be penalties, just because the Indiana team you're facing is very disciplined, and I'm not just talking penalties. I think just being disciplined in general, in terms of assignment, in terms of what the play is, in terms of sticking to your gaps on defense and sticking to your assignment defensively, and then offensively, just not getting ahead of yourself, sticking to the play, not trying to do too much, because that's what Indiana does. It's 11 guys as a unit beating 11 other on the other side, and so it's about discipline. I think it's going to be a good test for the DBs just because of the way they like to stress defenses in the back end. And then offensively, it's just about being able to put up points. I think for the first time since Colorado, this offense is going to have to put up some points. They had to do it against Indiana as well, and I thought they did a good job there. But yeah, they're going to have to put up points. You are expecting an Indiana team that, as good as this Nebraska defense is, this is an Indiana team that has put up points on everybody this season. They're going to come into Nebraska, obviously Nebraska's going to go in there, but they're going to be expecting to put up points again, and Nebraska's got to be able to match that to try and stick in that game. So I think starting fast, playing disciplined football, defensively stopping the run, while maintaining, your integrity in the back end. They have, I think, if you're talking Jimmys and Joes, I think Nebraska's got the Jimmys and Joes here. They have the players. But in terms of scheme, in terms of coaching, I kind of give Indiana the edge there. So I'm curious how that kind of solves itself on Saturday.
Tim, as you look across the Big Ten, it's really important as coaches show up to a school that they build a brand, they build an identity within their football team. You see it a lot of places, like Illinois, Bielema, it's blue collar. Rutgers is a team that's going to do the dirty work. Iowa's a team that's going to rely upon their defense. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to wait for you to beat yourself. I think Matt Rhule is trying to build a tough football team. I think that's the brand that he wants here at Nebraska, maybe a little blue collar as well. What's the brand of Curt Cignetti in Indiana? What do you think they're trying to build out there in Bloomington?
The culture feels like winning. Like, it just feels like winning, and winning like with pride. Like, it starts from the head coach down. I think teams resemble their head coach, whoever that is. You talk about Bielema, you talk about Rhule. Like, it is they embody the traits that the head coach presents, and the traits that Curt Cignetti presents are winning and confidence. Confidence bordering on arrogance, but he deserves it with the type of record he has, with the success he's had at every place he's been. He absolutely has the right to walk in and be arrogant wherever he goes. So I think it's that. I think it's just like, you pride yourself on winning, you pride yourself on being the better team, and you pride yourself on going in there and winning as a team. Like, I think that's the biggest part of it too, is winning as a team rather than individual playing above a team, because that's never been who Curt is.
Tim, one of the things that's important to me if you want to beat a team that's uber confident and maybe even a little arrogant is to put a little bit of self-doubt in them early in a football game to try to get that creeping in. What do you think Nebraska has, or what do you think they want to do on Saturday that can give that Indiana football team a little bit of self-doubt?
I think force a couple of punts, like make that offense stall a little bit, punch them in the mouth, like, again, be physical with them up front. I think that line, Nebraska's going to have an opportunity to get after the quarterback again. I think they're going to have an opportunity to at least play them up to par on the line. So I think Nebraska, it's just early on, it's about punching them in the mouth, being that road team that comes in and gives them some guff, like make them fight back, because they haven't had to do that all season. So I think that's what Nebraska kind of has to do.
Tim Verghese with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, at Tim Verghese on Twitter is where you follow him. Read him, rivals.com, Inside Nebraska. Let's flip it around with Indiana defensively and what they can do. They can get after the quarterback, yes. But what do you anticipate seeing with Nebraska's offense? We saw good enough first half against Rutgers. We also saw, a team that was feeling pretty good and made some plays throughout this season as we kind of reflect back on the first half. They scored enough against Illinois. They did their job against Colorado, but it feels like the offense is either boom or bust, feast or famine. Can you get some stabilization? You'll need it, yes, Saturday, but what's Nebraska going to lean on in your eyes Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think stability is obviously important to winning the game offensively, but I think in terms of what you're leaning on, I think this is where the size really comes to play, especially at wide receiver, especially at the running back position. You need your big guys, the guys you brought in, the Isaiah Nayors, the Jamal Banks, the Dante Dowdles. You need those guys to have big days, in my opinion, because that's where I think you have the advantage. Is I don't think Indiana has faced these big, tall receivers that can stretch the field. I don't think Indiana has faced a running game that can is as physical as Nebraska's can be. I think the combination of those two things paired with just I think consistency, like having a game plan where you stretch them out in different ways, like getting to that point where it's okay, we're lining up pretty much under center. You're selling out for the run. You've loaded the box and we throw it over the top to Isaiah Neal. Like it needs to be a lot of that, in my opinion. Managing time of possession. And again, I think here's another one where not necessarily getting out to an early lead. An early lead would certainly help in a game like this. I felt an early lead was important against Rutgers. Mm-hmm. An early lead would help in a game like this. But I think more than anything, keeping that offense off the board early on and making them play from behind, I think is really important.
Is this a ball control game for Nebraska?
Absolutely.
Simple.
Can they do it?
That's the real question.
That's my question. Can they run it?
I need to see them do that. I think so, only because I do think this O-line with the break, having 2 weeks to kind of scout for this defense, like I think this Indiana offense is legit. I do think this Indiana defense can, people have put up points on them. So I think Nebraska's going to be able to put up points, and I think they're going to be able to maintain drives a little better than they were against Rutgers, just because this is a defense that I think can get worn down. If you make an emphasis on wearing them down, I think they can get worn down. And I think, this is the type of game Rhule's talked about, where some of those 3-4 yard gains in the third and fourth quarter turn into 6-7+ yard gains.
Tim Verghese with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Justice, jump in, brother.
Tim, I wanted to ask you a quick question about Curtis Rourke, transferred in from Ohio in the offseason. He's used to the MAC and the way that the MAC style plays, and now he's gotten adjusted to the Cignetti offense. How important is it going to be for this Nebraska D-line, the linebacking core, and Tony White, just as a defense as a whole, to get pressure on Curtis Rourke and make him uncomfortable early?
Yeah, that's so super important, and I think they have an opportunity to do that, just because the Rutgers O-line is better than this Indiana O-line, in my opinion, just from what we've seen. I think the rankings and statistics back that up as well. So I think Nebraska would have an opportunity to get after him. Curtis is a guy that doesn't really get rattled. He's played a lot of football. He's a big, tall presence back there. Is willing to kind of stand in there and take a hit, can move around a little bit too. I really think they go as he goes, and he's been pretty damn well consistent this year, been consistent most of his career. So I think it's one of those things where you rattle him a bit early and you make him uncomfortable and play like an uncharacteristic type game.
Let's flip it over to Dylan. We'll get to some recruiting here in a moment, but what do you foresee from Dylan here as you look at the first half? Rutgers got him flustered a little bit, and that'll happen. Do you think that was just a Schiano thing, or do you think there's going to be more kitchen sink thrown at Dylan here as the season moves forward?
Yeah, I think that people are going to start doing that a little more, just throwing stuff at him just because there is tape on him now. You can kind of see what confused him. One thing I'm actually interested to see, there's been 2 games now. 2 games now, Rutgers and Illinois, where a mistake happens or something happens and he's just not able to get back on track. Illinois, it was the end of the game, just taking first it was the interception, then those 2 sacks or the 2 fumbles, and then going to overtime where they just kind of fell flat. But it felt like he never really recovered from those 2 late fumbles. Against Rutgers, it felt like he got flustered early and never really bounced back. So one of those, Illinois, he just didn't have enough of an opportunity to bounce back from that interception. But we've seen 2 instances now where he gets rattled and isn't really able to recover. So I think Saturday, you want to see him, if he gets rattled early, be able to recover. But 2, I think you want to see him play a game. I expect him to bounce back. I don't think I have any doubts there of him just being able to flush that last performance, sit over the bye week, put together a game plan that works with stuff he's comfortable with. I don't have any doubts there. It's just late in this game, can he keep delivering? Because this is a game where I think come third, fourth quarter, he's going to have to keep delivering. And I just want to see him be able to sustain that for 4 quarters.
Tim, hang tight. We'll do just a touch of overtime, get to some recruiting.
It's tradition at this point.
It is. Like a tradition like no other.
Yeah, Tim hasn't yelled at us yet. So.
He has not, and Tim's going to put his green jacket on, and away we go. But more with Tim Verghese inside Nebraska. Rivals is where you read him and follow him at Tim Verghese. We'll have some recruiting thoughts from Tim at Hail Varsity on a Monday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Some overtime with Tim Verghese inside Nebraska, Rivals.com, and at Tim Verghese on Twitter. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody. Hail Varsity Monday, Hail Varsity YouTube, where you can like and subscribe and watch the show. Tim's in the stream with us here. Tim, Nebraska did what during the bye week on the recruiting front? Any radar? Any updates here with Nebraska and their process to close out some 2025 kids?
Yeah, it was a busy-ish weekend for the staff. A couple new offers, I think, starting to expand just the board a little bit in 2026, 2027. The big news, obviously, over the weekend, Thursday night, Matt Rhule was at Blue Valley to go see Dawson Merritt. I think it says a lot. I mean, I tweeted it and I talked about it then, but I think it says a lot that Rhule was there. It's a Thursday night. It's a critical bye week. This is kind of the next bye week on Nebraska's schedule. Most high school teams will be in playoffs, or most high school states will be in playoffs at that point. So, he could have been anywhere on the Thursday night. He could have gone and seen a commit he hasn't seen yet. He could have gone and seen, a 26 target to get ahead. I think the fact that he chose to spend his Thursday night to go see Dawson Merritt says a lot about the fact that Nebraska legitimately thinks they have a chance there. And talking to people that were in attendance and in the building close to that situation, they agree. I think this is coming down to Nebraska and Alabama. I think both programs are going to have like a real fight ahead in these final few weeks heading into December. Obviously, no letter of intent exists anymore, but guys are going to be signing these financial aid agreements in December, getting ready to enroll early. So I think that's mainly what we're looking at now is Nebraska's got to keep chipping away. That Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt helps. I think the fact that Nebraska's defense has done what they've done this year helps, and the development of the linebackers, seeing that happen in real time has helped. But the biggest thing for Nebraska, in my opinion, just heading into the backstretch of this recruitment, is some type of clarity on Tony White's situation. Like Tony White's defense sells itself to a lot of these guys. Dawson Merritt specifically has taken notice of the way linebackers play in Tony White's defense, how fun it is to play in White's defense, how much they attack. And I think Nebraska being able to give some sort of clarity on the future of the program, whether Tony's here or not, the future of the defense, I think would be big in that recruitment.
It's Tim Verghese with us here. And Tim, we led off this interview. I asked you about Ryan Wingo down at Texas. Another wideout Nebraska is locked in a recruiting battle with Texas is Michael Terry III. We haven't talked about him in probably a month and a half, 2 months. You have an update on his recruitment, where Nebraska stands in that? I know last time we talked, Nebraska seemed to be trailing behind Texas just a little bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of where things are at now. And in my opinion, I think that gap has widened a bit between Texas and Nebraska. This coming week's pretty big for him. He's going to that Texas-Georgia game. Probably the last visit he's got on his schedule before I think he's going to try and make a decision. I'll say this. I think if we're coming out of that weekend and Texas isn't far and away the favorite to land his commitment, I think that opens the door again for Nebraska to try and make something happen late. But every read here feels like Texas is going to try and close this one out this weekend. Feels like a formality at this point. But again, Nebraska's done their part to stay in it. And again, I think the biggest thing at this point is I'm just waiting to see if he comes out of this weekend and there's any semblance of I want to take a little more time with this. I think that keeps the door open for Nebraska to try and make something happen in November, even December.
Tim, we'll holler at you next Monday. We'll see how things shake out in Bloomington. Always love your input and insight, man. Thanks for a few minutes.
Of course. Appreciate y'all. See you.
There he is.
Thanks,
Tim Verghese with us, Inside Nebraska Rivals at Tim Verghese on Twitter. It's where you follow him. Let's get a little bit of Rhule rewind here and hear from Nebraska's head man. The lowdown here, cut 2 on Indiana. All the goods on those Hoosiers.
I mean, well, they're leading the Big Ten in passing, and I believe they're close, if not the top in rushing. They're top 10 in the country in offense. They're top 10 in the country in defense. They're the only team that hasn't trailed all year, and they've scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. So this is probably a top 10 football team we're facing, right? Just it's one of them. They started the season unranked, so they're not maybe getting the due that they're supposed to get, right? I mean, other people can lose to a bad team and they'll keep them in the top 10 because whatever they started in the top 10, But Coach Cignetti's done an amazing job. The quarterback's absolutely fantastic. They got playmakers. They're good on special teams. It's a great team.
A lot of praise, and Indiana deserves it, man. 6-0, 3-0 in conference. They are murdering folks. 47.5 points a ball game. I think they're allowing 14. That screams cover. to some of us. A little bit more from Matt Rhule. We talked about it. You heard Tim Verghese. We'll get Coach McBride and Jay Moore's take next hour as well. But that physicality part, Nebraska, their run game, Nebraska, and that's one thing this team is under Rhule, is a tough, hard-nosed, physical football team. And, Rhule was asked about the jumbo set and the run game. Cut 11. Hear more from Matt Rhule earlier today.
Yeah, it's a great question. I did an extensive study of the run game, and some of the numbers are hurt a little bit by some of the sacks we've taken, and some of the numbers are helped by some of the speed sweeps. I try to take all that out. We just haven't had the explosive runs, if that makes sense. There's a lot of 4 and 5 yard runs, which you like, right? Keep you on track, but we haven't had the big runs. That 2-back power set, that's what I was known for at Temple. We were going to run that against you 15 times a game. You're going to have to deal with, I run that play, I get texts from 20 guys hey, we ran it the game before too. We ran it against Purdue on the goal line. We ran it against Rutgers. So, you do it enough, people, we line up and there's 10 people around you, so you're not going to have big hits. But I think the big thing for us as we move forward is just to really, really find some ways to get some long runs. You know what I mean? I like some of the consistency of the runs more than I thought I did. But we got to hit a couple big ones, right? And so we haven't done that. But yes, absolutely, having the fullback, having the tight ends, even just practicing against it, and we practice against it every week. I think it just hardens your team. I mean, it's really, there's not many teams that have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Indiana does, and because I believe if your defense, all they do is defend the spread all day, every day in practice, when you face a tough team, and make no mistake now, Rutgers, Greg Schiano, Brett Bielema, those are tough people, and those are tough. We faced 3 straight teams with a defensive coordinator as a head coach. They're going to run the ball, and they're going to grind you, and you're going to be physical. But if your defense never sees it till game day or with a scout team, it's really hard to be a physical defense, right? So I feel bad for some of these guys, these defensive coordinators, they go play for an offensive head coach who's a play caller, and some guys can do it, and they get fired, and everyone's like, he can't coach. Well, you're not getting hardened, right? You're not getting, if you play in this program, we might not ever beat, the top 10 in passing, but we're going to run power, and we're going to run duo, and we're going to run counter, and you're going to see those things in practice, and so when you get to the game, it's never really a shock. And so, but yes, to your point, I think one of our major emphases moving forward is just getting a little bit better in the run game, fixing some of those things on special teams. We're making a lot of good plays on special teams, but the catastrophic plays are killing us. And, trying to fix 1 or 2 of those things and see if we can be a better team.
Well, and that's really, part of the judgment on Saturday after a bye week. Do you come back looking cleaned up in some of those areas you've fallen short with, or that's allowed you from really burying a football team? And you're going to need 4 quarters of it. And I love what he said there. I mean, you can say a lot of things about Nebraska's offense or defense, but when they go beat the hell out of one another, gets them ready for Saturday. I mean, they're not going to blink going up against a physical team. And so maybe that is one advantage Nebraska has Saturday is the physicality. We'll wind down this first hour, 489-1240. Could also jump in the stream Hail Varsity YouTube.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So Becky chimes in the stream. Nebraska wins Saturday. They got a bowl game. That's huge. Not to be overlooked. Just for the sake of all things sane, Elijah and I are not going to Bloomington like we went to East Lansing last year. But we're not far off from Ohio State, that Rhody.
Well, for those that don't know, there's a bit of a Hail Varsity Radio road trip curse.
Wrong answer. Last time I was in Iowa City, Nebraska won.
Wow. You're 1 for 40 over the past 10 years.
That's a big one. I'm 1 for 40. Wow. That sounds...
Yeah, but before that
sounds ominous.
Before Iowa City 2 years ago, it was South Bend, I think, was the last win you saw on the road. I'm kidding.
Well, hold on. So Arizona State in 96. Me. South Bend in 2000. It was 2000. It's me and Cranack and the Amish. We stayed at a Camp KOA. And that was a win. Where else? Ireland.
To win?
No, I'm just saying.
You don't have many wins on your road trips.
I don't.
I don't have any.
No.
So I'm 0 for still. I still haven't seen a
So maybe
a Husker
it's
victory.
like Ghostbusters and crossing the stream. Maybe if we both show up with a top 3 opponent, which is Ohio State in 2 weeks, maybe it counteracts. Either the world blows up or you're able to get Slimer. I don't know.
Jeff Snitley chimes in here and says, we won't talk about Boulder. No, we will not.
Oh.
Moving on.
No.
The real win in Boulder
The real win when Boulder was having the Snitley boys discuss with the bartender getting the taps turned back on.
I was just going to say, the win.
Boulder Peace Tree.
The real win in Boulder was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, that's true. That's very fair because there's no way in God's green earth that the tap should have been turned back on. Whiskey was still off limits. And this wasn't anything Elijah or I or the Snitley boys did. They were just returning a wallet to some hammered Nebraska fan, and they got lumped in guilt by association. And with that, the cutoff happened.
To be fair, we had been there for a couple hours at that point.
We were doing our post game, though.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were working.
Yeah.
For part of the time.
We were working. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT, Highway Safety Office. Get to some of your emails coming in. Do you believe in the road jinx, the road curse? You and I have embarked on Nebraska over the years.
Are you asking me or are you asking the stream?
I'm asking the stream and I'm asking you.
I absolutely believe it. Yeah. Our record is horrible. But then again, Nebraska's also just been a horrific road team over the past decade or so. So that needs to be accounted for.
Captain says Nebraska has 150 yards rushing and create 1 turnover. They win. Trevor checks in. All Big Ten teams are beatable this year. Just a matter of being physical and controlling the ball on both sides. Evan says Indiana's just not that good. They aren't. I'm tired of hearing it. We should be ashamed if we lose. You know, there's 100 different ways this thing can go on Saturday, and we're halfway home on a Monday. What's Coach McBride think? Mr. Blackshirt himself chimes in 10 minutes. Jay Moore with us next hour. It's Hail Varsity.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, Tower 2. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Justice Rhody in. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, a Monday with Charlie, Coach Charlie McBride, every Monday at 5:05 Central. Coach, did you enjoy the bye week? Did you enjoy some college football? How you doing?
Well, I had a good time. I sat here and I just, got some mold under my feet. I didn't do anything. I just watched football and I guess my wife said I took a nap a couple times.
That's okay. There's nothing better than waking up when it's 14-14 and then it's the fourth quarter and it's the final drive, you know?
That's about it.
I love it. Well, let me ask you this question before we get into Nebraska-Indiana. And you know this so well, trying to get consistent, right? Get the team, get the kids consistent week to week, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge because of what college football is. What do you think of the Big Ten and just how up and down, topsy-turvy, dangerous every ball game is?
Well, I think it's harder on everybody. It's the travel. It's the it's just the teams are all getting better. I think that's a good thing. But it's hard. It's so hard on everybody, and you're throw recruiting into it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't think that you got to do the recruiting the same time you're trying to get ready for a game. Mm-hmm. And all those things are pretty tough on coaches. So that week off, I think, is a help. At least it gives you a little bit of room. But then again, coaches may send you out, and you may be out on the road and trying to get ready for another game. And I'm sure that Indiana, I know that they practice all the time. So, they don't get much rest, I don't think, over there. They gave him a few days off here. I think Coach Rhule gave him 3 days off on the weekend. Well, I think that's good.
It's Charlie McBride with us here, another Blackshirt Monday with Coach Charlie McBride. And, Coach, I want to quickly focus in on Indiana because you talk about that week of practice that they had last week. Like it or not, and whether or not you believe Indiana is great or not, what they are right now is an undefeated football team through half of the football season, which puts them in a firm position to be a college football playoff contender. Will they remain there over the final 6 games? That's a whole other question entirely. But as it stands right now, just outside the top 15, undefeated, they're a college football playoff contender. For a team of guys with a first-year head coach that's never had this kind of success. I know they won at James Madison, but it's a different scenario entirely when you're playing Power 4 football. How hard is it to manage the emotions of the guys and the expectations of the guys as you make it through a bye week whenever the guys are thinking, you know what, we're undefeated and we could be in contention for a college football playoff this year?
Yeah. Well, I think they brought in a ton of guys, and I think some of them, if I'm not mistaken, are players that played for them before.
Yep.
And they can pass the word a lot. And the thing that's a little hard is some of the guys that are there, they expect to be starters, maybe aren't starters anymore. And there can be a little bit of a draw back against the coaches that way, because actually they know the other guys better than they know the players that were there. So, that it can work in every different direction. But I think he brought in 20-some guys, and that's a lot of people. And he knew about all of them, I think, and that's what it wasn't a guessing game for them. And so they got the right people. And they like I said, they've got some guys that played for them as it was.
Coach, what do you think of this Indiana team and the matchup here as you dive into it a little bit? They score a lot of points. They don't allow a lot of points. They can run it. They can throw it. They seem pretty poised. Meanwhile, Nebraska has another opportunity in front of them to, as Coach Rhule talks about, be relevant.
Yeah, well, anytime you're going to beat a team that's ahead of them and that's in the standings, so it's always a challenge. But that's the thing that's good. I think that brings your the volume up a little bit. With the players, they get a little. They understand that they're actually the underdog. Are supposed to be. I don't know whether being away from home, I would guess that they are in some ways. Yeah. But the thing is I don't know if they've ever seen or practiced against the kind of team defensively that they're going to see, and for that matter, even offensively. But I think that this was a good week for them to slide a few things in the running game that they didn't do before. That maybe something that they didn't have time to really put in everything, and that's kind of the thing that we looked at. Can we change the blocking, or can we change the formation of this and that? And misdirection is something, and a lot of times tricks are things that he's capable of. They do a little bit of that out of their kicking game, I think. And so it's just going to be one of those things. You go down there, you're got everybody that hates you. So that's good. I always like that because it's always an incentive. And so I think they'll do well. I think that they're at a point now where, they really want to play hard, and that they want to play like if they play like they've been playing, and especially on defense, they'll cause them some problems.
Coach, specifically with what Indiana does, they like to spread you out offensively, spread out your defense. Then they like to kind of have an even mix. They like to both run the football and throw the football. They haven't had many troubles doing either so far this year. Their offense has been fantastic. And when I consider those things, this feels like a game to me that the Husker defensive line needs to do something that you preached. I want to dive into what it means whenever you say that you taught your defensive linemen to play the run on the way to the quarterback. This feels like a game where Nebraska needs to do just that. What does that actually mean in your eyes?
Well, I think, what it means exactly what it says. I mean, you have to learn the blocking schemes and react to them immediately. The way people set up on different things like play action passes and so on, a good defensive lineman knows right now whether it's a play action pass or it's not. And that's just the way they come off the ball. A lot of screen teams will set their feet different. They'll try to encourage you outside right away. Instead, they'll turn their bodies right away, and things just something simple like that. And so those are the things that you want to try to convey to the players, and do it in practice, and be sure that the scout team, is coached up enough that they can do those things and give you a good look. It's a hard thing for a lot of these young men to do, But if you get people that we had graduate assistants and so forth coaching the scout teams and had them looking at film what Indiana did and how they looked and this and that, how they went in motion, and so all those things are important. And I don't know how much of it they covered. I don't know what their schedule would be, and so. But all of those things, and there's millions of. I mean, it's a joke almost that all the things they have to learn. In fact, we had a professor visiting, and he was sitting there listening to the players, call checks and so forth as the play went on, and came to me afterwards and said, I never, ever fathomed that this was, that they had this much to do and they had to learn this much. And I think it brought him up to figure it out with all those guys going to school too. And plus this is pretty hard on them.
Coach, a lot to think about here. I wanted to ask you specifically about Indiana's quarterback, Curtis Rourke. I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's played tall, stocky, experienced quarterbacks like Curtis Rourke is, how would you coach your defense to attack him and get after him and mess with his psyche early in a game?
Well, anytime the thing that in practice that you have to do, one of the simple things is, when you hear his call is communication. Communication, a draw. If you hear guys yelling draw, you retrace your steps. In other words, you stop and you're going back to where you came from. A lot of times a stunt. In some cases, they'll call the right stunt at the right time, and you'll have somebody right in the face of the back, which happens once in a while. I mean, if you, and a lot of them, they'll try to misdirect you. They'll try to get you thinking, it's just thrown out one way, and it ends up being a screen to the backside and things like that. And I always told the defensive lineman, play what you see. And so if you saw a run action, you play the run. And he may go in a bootleg, or what do we call a bootleg, just a full flow, and then the quarterback goes out the other way. That'd be a bootleg, and then a waggle pass would be when the backs split and they go out the other way. But the linemen are giving you a direction to the defensive lineman. Well, we got two defensive linemen, basically. And so those are the guys that have to know, what's going on. And they can protect a lot against the run, and he has got the ability to do that.
Coach, how many points do you think it's going to take on Saturday?
It's going to take 28 to 30.
Okay, so the first to 30.
But we're capable of that. I mean, our guys are, there's going to be a time when they're going to bust loose, and this would be a good time. And, no, I mean it really. I mean this is, and that's what I'd be harping on. I mean, if I was, an offensive coach, that we got to put some points on the board, and if we don't, then we're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So, but I think the way they're playing now, if they got their heads screwed on right. Mm-hmm. And I was good to see the way they played. They were flying around. I mean, it was fun to watch.
They looked super confident and weren't scared's not the right word, but weren't worried about the moment when it got tight against Rutgers defensively. And you're just wondering with that complementary football piece if the offense can kind of return to form like they did against Colorado and a little bit like Illinois, because offense has got a lot of options and a lot of weapons to score some points, Coach.
Yeah, that's right, and I think a lot of them. And the quarterback isn't a neophyte to any of this stuff. He's this isn't the first year he's done this kind of thing. So it's an interesting deal. But the one thing that gets them is they still are going to throw the football, and when you get some pressure on them and you put them down a few times, they start thinking and looking around. And, an impression doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Little close impression. Well, yeah. Coach, I like that. Should be pretty good. Nebraska-Indiana. You guys whacked around old Lee Corso, didn't you? Back when.
Yeah. Well, Lee was always said the bad thing about it was when you go home, they only take so many guys on the trip, and so you're playing their first and second team. So when you're ahead, they put in their second team. Well, we were playing them. We were alternating them enough that we get them all in there in the game, but. It is true that, if you are a good football team, there's nothing you can do to slow it down if you're away from home and have limited numbers.
Yeah. You got, the second team's tired from scoring back in the day. Put the first team back in.
Well, it hurt. It's a funny thing when you listen to, people talk about statistics and things like that. Like we played Miami in the bowl game, and then you put your thirds and some of your scout team guys in the game because you're ahead by so much. They had, I think they scored. We had 17 points, and then they ended up with 28. They got just about 10 more points, but it was against a team that wouldn't, that might not have been that many points if it had been the first group or
sure.
First and second.
Right.
So that happens if you got a lot of points. That happens, and so it doesn't make any difference as long as you got enough points to win.
Well, we'll see how Saturday shakes out. Coach, you take care, and we'll chat next Monday. Okay.
Okay, I'll be all fired up. I might take a little trip in a couple of weeks to Arizona and see how those guys are doing.
Well, do that. That'd be good. Yeah. Coach, appreciate you much. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks, guys, for having me.
Jay Moore's on the way. Hour 2 coming up.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Who's Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice driving the bus. Jay Moore with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. At Jay Moore 44 is where you follow him on Twitter. You see him, Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay Bird, as we look at you on the video screen, I trust you're not wearing throwback Hoosier candy-striped warm-up pants?
No, not definitely don't. Although those are sweet, I will say that I love the classic look for the Hoosier basketball team. But no, it's definitely Hoosier Hate Week in the Moore household.
So you do not have one of the greatest basketball movies of all time, which shall remain nameless, but we all know what I'm talking about, pulled up on the TV right now.
You can't watch it this week.
Yeah, but it's not about the University of Indiana, to be fair.
That is a great movie. Aren't they the Huskers too in that?
They are.
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood.
The Hickory Huskers, right?
Yeah, Hickory. And who was the drunk? Who was the drunk?
Oh, God.
Assistant coach. Legendary actor from Easy Rider. Look at us doing film and critique.
Shooter?
Shooter. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great movie. One of my favorite movies of all time.
The other Shooter.
That one's up there with Major League One.
Okay, yeah. They really shouldn't have made a second or a third. What?
Hoosiers?
No.
I'm kidding.
The second one was decent. The third one was atrocious. The second one was decent. The second one's pretty good. You get, we're getting way off the rails here, but gosh, you got to love the catcher, the character in the second episode or the second Major League. He was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, based off of Miss, Playboys of the Month to get his throws to the pitcher. I mean, whatever works.
Yep.
However you associate play calls and memorization. But it is a big week. It is huge because, Indiana is going to have, darn near a top 15 ranking, 18 and 16s when they come in, or how they come in this week. Nebraska's sneaking in the coaches poll, but, really it's kind of not only a prove it, but more of a truth serum week. How for reals, Indiana, great stats. They've played who they've played, not their fault, their reality. And then there's Nebraska, who, after a bye week and a squad that you want to believe has learned from that Illinois moment, you fast forward a few weeks here, it's a great opportunity for Nebraska to really be relevant that Rhule talked about today.
Yeah, it's a fantastic week. It's another test. It's this back half of the schedule is tough, but it's an excellent opportunity to prove yourself going on the road. Big noon kickoff. So listen, Indiana is a tough football team. Cignetti is a hell of a football coach. He has identified and got some talent in there, and has got them playing at a very high level. This offense is potent. It's high powered. They can run it. They predominantly throw it, but they can run the ball a little bit with Ellison. But Rourke at quarterback is really, really good. He's like 28 years old. He's like Chris Wanke at Florida State. The guys played forever. But that maturity has helped this football team. They do have an older football team, but they've played who they've played. They've handled everyone very comfortably. I think maybe the Maryland game was the closest game, but Indiana and Army are the only two teams that haven't trailed at all in any games they played this year. So, but given that, Nebraska is by far the best team they have faced. Nebraska will probably be one of the best defenses they see all year. They still got to see Ohio State yet this year. And with Nebraska's receiving crew and their ability to do things with Dylan Rhule, I'm pretty confident to say that they are the best team. Nebraska is the best team that's Indiana has faced. Now they'll face better, but up to this point, it's Nebraska is a good football team, and they're going to give them everything they want to handle on Saturday morning, and it's going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be just see where both programs are, who's for real through the first 6 games, and who needs to clean some stuff and get better to start the year and get bowl eligible.
Jay, one of the things to me that's important here, Nebraska needs to get to bowl eligibility, but with as many games as they have left, particularly with that game still coming up against UCLA, I think you feel all right about Nebraska's chances to be bowl eligible regardless of what happens on Saturday. What Saturday is to me, from a team point of view, is if you're preaching, which both these coaches have, Rhule and Cignetti, that they want to be relevant, they want to be in college football playoff discussions come November. This feels to me like an elimination game in terms of, are you a legit contender for the college football playoff or are you not? Because Nebraska already dropped the 1 game to Illinois. Indiana is still undefeated. Both these teams have Ohio State coming up. And it feels like 10-2. I know you have to kind of throw what you know out about college football playoff selection, but it's an uphill climb if you're at 10-2 at the end of the year trying to get into a college football playoff. You'll need some help. Does this feel like a potential elimination game for a college football playoff in that if you want to be a legit contender for the playoff, you got to go win this football game?
I mean, I would think maybe, I don't know. It's so hard because I don't see both teams ever was worrying about trying to get to the college football playoff before the season started. Now I think there's probably more pressure on Indiana up at this point because they have played so well and they are undefeated. But I think, looking at it, if Indiana would, if Nebraska does win this football game, which I think Nebraska does have a really good chance of beating Indiana, you look at it and I don't know. I mean, you got to see with Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, USC has fallen off. So I think you look at 4 teams maybe getting in to the playoff potentially. Maybe, I don't know. They got to see how the year finishes off for them. For Nebraska, I don't think that's just a realistic chance for them. I just think 9-3 is really, really opportunistic, and I would say it's attainable, but I think it's going to be tough. So I don't foresee Nebraska being a college football playoff team, even if they do beat Indiana. But yeah, I think if Indiana does win this, they're in the driver's seat, right, to be there and to get a chance to get themselves, whether or not they make it to Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game or not. They have every right to play and to be considered for the college football playoff. But like I said, I think it's nice to even have this for both teams to have a conversation. At the 7th game of the season, like, hey, is this a make or break deal for the college football playoff? Because I think preseason wise, neither of these programs probably thought that they're definitely not in the mix. That's for sure.
Relevancy and the stage, and there's gonna be a lot of eyeballs on this ball game, and that is what is exciting to me. What's Nebraska look like in this moment? We know the defense is playing better, but I'm really anxious to see the offense put something together, Jay, for 4 quarters. I'm anxious to see Dylan Rhule go play ball, lead the offense, and then I'm anxious to see the run game complement. I mean, can this football team pull it together? Because they'll need to for 4 quarters. How does Nebraska get it done in your estimation? What can they do on offense that's sustainable, that travels, and that they can get in rhythm with?
Yeah, it's complementary football, right? I think ideally you'd like to go on the road and be able to run it right down their throats and control the time possession. At times Nebraska's look like they can do that, but at times they can't. And I think you have to figure out how to get it done. I think they're going to try to run the football. I think you always go on the road and try to establish the run and kind of take the crowd out of it and, own that time possession and kind of break that defense's will. But if it's a little bit inconsistent, hey, guess what? You can go ahead and rely on Nayor, Banks, Fedoni, Barney, Bonner, who have been key cogs in this offense for through the first 6 games. But it'll be kind of interesting to see just with the run game, how they're going to handle with Barney. We saw a lot of the sweep motions, the orbit motions, jet sweeps to Barney. How are they going to utilize that in the run game? Do they play off of that to create some more opportunities up the middle to kind of get their eyes paused on Barney, and you can kind of gash some guys up the middle. What can you do off of some of those play action, those different plays like that? But like I said, if it's not there, listen, that's the hard thing about the run game, and I think offensive coordinators, when they aren't successful running the football early in the game, they tend to get away from it rather quickly. So I think that's the biggest thing for Nebraska is have success early running the football. So Satterfield and company doesn't lose confidence in it. I think you can get Emmett Johnson, Ramir, Dowdell going. And I think you can use running backs as well in the passing game, as we've seen against Purdue and some other teams as well in the screen game. Ramir had that great play on the screen in the screen pass against Rutgers. So There's a ton. This offense is dynamic. It hasn't put up a ton of points at time. Obviously, special teams has been kind of the bugaboo with some of that, getting points in the field. But it's got to get off to a good start. Got to take care of the football, and points are a premium. They're always a premium on the road, and you're playing Big Ten ball. And somehow, if they can get in the red zone, they can't score. Just getting 3 points, the kicking game some confidence, and then. Again, if they can't move the ball, flipping the field, Buschini's done a great job of doing that so far this year as well, is really turning that thing over and pinning the opposing offense deep and, giving your defense a chance after a quick change scenario. So they're going to have to be at their best. I don't think Indiana is the best defense they faced. I think Rutgers and Illinois might have better defenses, but it's on the road. It's going to be a sold-out crowd. People are going to be geeked up. But again, I don't think Indiana is the most intimidating place that Nebraska is going to go this year. But I feel good about where this team has come off a bye week, and I know Indiana's come off a bye week, but I feel good about where things are headed. Even though it's been a little discombobulated at times, I think this year. But I like where this team's trending going forward.
It's Jay Moore with us here, former Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Mondays with Jay on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, you mentioned Brian Buschini just a second ago. Today we learned from Matt Rhule officially he received a black shirt under recommendation from the 11 guys on the defensive side of the ball who had their black shirts. They said, you know what, that guy Brian Buschini deserves a black shirt, and he gets one. I want to get the former black shirt's response to that. It's not often you see a punter get a black shirt. What's your take on that? Is it deserved in your eyes?
Oh, it's deserved, right? I mean, he's been. I think he's very highly respected amongst his peers, amongst his teammates, and I think I've been part of defenses. I think Sam Cook had a black shirt as a punter, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy was one of the best to ever do it at Nebraska and kicked forever in the NFL. So yeah, the guys, whether technically it's technically an offensive play, but it turns into a defensive play. But he's single-handedly secured and won that Rutgers game last week. So it's fun, happy for him. He's punted fantastic. At times he's gotten the ball off and poor snaps. I mean, thankfully for him too, his tackling ability against Purdue a couple weeks ago on all the fake field goals, and then even on the was it the kickoff return as well early in the second half. I mean, yeah, I think through this first half of the season, I think I'm okay with it. Some people, kickers, are their own little separate deal, but yeah, I think he definitely deserves just how he's performed so far through the 6 games.
Jay, what are you confident with Nebraska's defense as we look a little more at Indiana? I know they can run it. I know they can throw it. I know they can spread it out. Will they run out of that spread formation? You've got a gray beard at quarterback. You mentioned a little bit ago that is super mature, super talented in Rourke. And, where's Nebraska vulnerable, or are they, in your opinion? Do you expect them to get after the quarterback on Saturday?
Well, I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. I think, Nebraska's shown to be able to rush the passer from the edges and up the middle, obviously with Nash and Ty. But then you throw Princewell and James Williams and, MJ Sherman, and there's just, multiple guys that they can bring in there from different looks to cause havoc. Where Nebraska doesn't get tested, I mean, they play four wide receivers predominantly. They're going to get tested. They run a lot of 4 wide receiver sets. So those guys in the back end, they're going to get a lot of action. So, whatever that game plan kind of looked, I think Colorado's offense, Indiana offense is a little different, but that was a hell of a wide receiver group that Nebraska faced against Colorado and was able to shut them down because they got off the quarterback and they couldn't run the football. So you always got to stop the run first and foremost, and they do a decent job with it, and they like to do some RPO stuff as well. But they're going to get tested on the back end. But this is a D-line game. Let's keep the momentum going with creating the pressure coming up from the middle. The O-line for Indiana they're feasible. They're good, not great, but I think Nebraska can flat get after Rourke in the pass rush and cause some timing issues, cause some confidence issues, and that's what they're going to need, because they do it in multiple different ways. You'll see jailbreak screens. They'll take shots. They'll do all sorts of things where they're going to test that secondary. And I know Sierra Wright just got a black shirt. He's been playing well. Tommy Hill potentially is back. They're going to test Hartzog. They're going to test Singleton. They're going to test Buford. So this is the most important game they've played so far. I don't know if it's the most talented group they've played so far on the wide receiver, but Cignetti's offenses know how to attack defenses, and like I said, Nebraska's the best defense they've played. So it's going to be kind of a nice see who's kind of a 1-2. See who can kind of throw those counter punches, right, and who can kind of take some body blows early on and still hang in there. But I tell you what, I think Nebraska's defense is trending in the right direction and is playing well after this, the fantastic performance against Rutgers just last week.
Jay, is there a moment you remember being on the field where you're taking on somebody similar to Indiana's story this year? And I'm not calling them Cinderella, but they've kind of come out of nowhere, where they run up against somebody and it just got real. You see that confidence kind of dissipate in body language or just free play. And I think there could be, a welcome to the Big Ten, so to speak, for Indiana's charmed life this year. I mean, from a physicality standpoint by Nebraska.
Yeah, I would agree, and I hope so. I think that's definitely a reality for them. Everyone, they can, you can take out the analytics, and they're well in Indiana's favor, but analytics don't mean a damn once you get punched in the mouth, and you're just kind of welcomed into that world. So I'm kind of hoping Nebraska is that team, right, that's going to give that first body blow or that punch in the mouth that says, hey, we don't give a damn what you've done in the past through these first 6 games. This is who we are, and this is how we're going to come in here and take you out and leave Bloomington with a W. As far as I can't, looking back at teams, oh shoot, I can't remember. Maybe a K-State my senior year, as what Freeman as quarterback.
Yeah.
I think they were pretty good coming in. We went on the road to Manhattan, handled them 28-6 or 28-3 or something like that. I can't remember what the final score was, but Ron Prince's teams, sometimes, Kansas was kind of up and coming, and but those are tough games, but I think that K-State team, in 06 was somewhat similar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's back the Big 12 back then was it's kind of where football started to change and what it is now with Texas Tech running, the run and shoot spread, and Kansas, same kind of operation, and Missouri, right? A lot of these, this is what we know, to spread you out and go high tempo and the run and shoot, whatever it may be, right? Air raid. So but I think those K-State teams were kind of in a similar situation. But I tell you, this is a game where this is if Nebraska can come out and just that physicality on that line of scrimmage, which I think they can, I think they'll be just fine on Saturday.
Jay, last thought here before we get you out, about 60 seconds. I want to go back to Saturday night, Ohio State, Oregon. Were you surprised to see the Ducks get the win?
A little bit, just because of their inconsistencies throughout the year. They struggled early on against some lower tier teams, and just they seemed a little sluggish. But I'll tell you what, Ohio State was just kind of it was a great football game. It was back and forth, sloppy. You had some penalties. You had that onside kick. I don't even know if it was supposed to be onside kick. He was just trying to kick it directionally and just hit the Ohio State guy right in the front row.
Remind me of the water boy.
Right. So it was just kind of a unique game, and how that ends, with Howard sliding, and was there 1 second left? Was there not? All that stuff. So not surprised whatsoever. I mean, the line was rather close, and going on the road's hard, man. It's tough, and Oregon's always a hard place. Autzen Stadium's a really tough place to play. And Oregon has the talent. I just don't think they've quite put it together yet this year. But I feel rather confident that's probably going to be, I would think that, a rematch, right, in December. in the Big Ten title game. So listen, this past Saturday with no Nebraska football was, I mean, even the Penn State USC game, the Illinois Purdue game was fantastic. That game, Tennessee, Florida, Texas blew out Oklahoma in the Red River shootout. So it was a fantastic bye week of football.
Bird, will holler next week. Appreciate your time, man.
Yep. Thanks, boys.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you one final time on a Monday. Big thanks to Coach McBride. Big thanks to Jay Moore, our Blackshirt Hour every Monday at 5. And then good stuff from Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody. We're with you here on the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube, all along the Hail Varsity Radio Network, where you hear us in your area. And you can always find and follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Take the podcast with you, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Search Hail Varsity Radio, like, subscribe. Feedback, give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. We'll take the feedback, appreciate it greatly. As a reminder, it's a road show Friday. We're at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino, 4 to 6. Across the river, come see us 4 to 6, right outside of Ameris Sports Book. We'll set a table up there. A lot of folks came by last time, said what's up. It was great to see everyone. You're invited back out. So this is one of many road Fridays. We're up at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino. Once we get back to home weeks, we'll be back at the Single Barrel Thursdays and Saturdays. And always I've missed the old patio shows at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill.
But the difference with the patio shows, and we love Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, don't get me wrong. But Pizza, wings, whatever you want.
Bang, bang sauce.
The difference is, can't throw down a parlay at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And there's nothing, I mean, that's fine. It's not a discredit.
It's just illegal.
That's the beauty. I think this parlay, the Hail Varsity Radio
Where's Elijah going?
Day,
why does he wear cuffs? Well, I'm kidding.
It's my turn, though, to bring the cash. So we got to get another Hail Varsity Radio parlay of the day locked in for Friday.
That was 13 seconds of bliss. And then
Ryan Williams did Ryan Williams.
Yeah, he did. Let's hear from Matt Rhule. Hunter versus hunted. That conversation. Shoe might be on the other foot here with Indiana ranked. Nebraska just into the top 25 from the coaches, cut 5.
Yeah, I think coming out of that Illinois game, we learned a lot of very, very valuable lessons. I think we applied those versus Purdue and Rutgers in many ways. I thought we had the right attitude playing in those games. You're watching college football this week, and like every good game comes down to the last possession, like it's an NFL game. And so, hopefully the last 2 weeks have gotten us used to that. This is a game though where we're facing. This is probably I try not to look at the lines and all that, but I'm pretty sure we're probably the underdog, right? So this is our guys' first time for doing that, right? So I much prefer that. I love turning on game day and seeing them all pick the other team. That's good for us, So, it's just kind of who I am and who a lot of our guys are. We're not. We are who we are. So, I think our guys, understand at this point, like, this is going to come down to football. We got to practice well, play well. Doesn't matter what music we listen to before the game. Doesn't matter what we wear. Doesn't matter what all of that's fun. We're going to have to block and tackle and, again, make one more play. I mean, you watch the end of Ohio State, Oregon. What a great football game with two great teams. And with all the things they did all game, it just came down to like a couple things at the end, right? So just trying to get ourselves a little bit better this week to make one more play.
So that is Matt Rhule. Tomorrow's lineup, we will have a Matt Schick sighting with ESPN, Sirius XM, and Schick and Nick show. Michael Brunt's going to join us, which is awesome. Bruntsy will be in, and then Mitch will be here to release the Fury. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Got Uncle Jerry sighting coming up on Wednesday. Former coach of the Hoosiers, part of the Big Ten Network. Coach DiNardo, he might point you where to eat if you're headed to Bloomington. And Tiger Shark believes I am from Greece or Sicily. Back tomorrow at 4. Have a good one. Thank you much.